And so thank you for joining us live if you're with us live. But again, this will be recorded and shared. So thank you for tuning in after the fact if you're watching on YouTube later or even later on Facebook. Thanks for being a part of it. Tonight, our goal here, we're calling this Unmasking Your Marriage. And so a little play on words regarding COVID-19.
And I've got my mask.
And you've got your mask.
Right.
He unmasked shortly before we started. Yeah. But the whole theme behind this is really COVID-19's forced a lot of people into, truly lives changed, which means as a result, every single marriage has been affected in some way, shape, or form. And so we are going to talk marriage kind of generally speaking. We'll be taking questions, of course, if you've got them about any and every marriage thing you want to throw out there. We'll try to get to your questions as soon as possible. But again, our theme tonight is looking at a little bit of marriage care or repair, specifically going through COVID-19. So the mask, if you, been in the store, it's hard to even talk through a mask. It's frustrating. We were talking as we started, you can't even unlock your iPhone anymore if you got the Face ID on your phone. And so
it is quite the first world problem.
It truly is, but I'm so frustrated by it. And it's just, I guess the littlest things are even more and more frustrating now.
Yes. Absolutely.
More than ever. And we're kind of missing life as we knew it. And so maybe that's where you're at in your marriage, or there's some effect of COVID on, I would argue, every single person on the face of the planet. And so we want to even kind of that play on words again of removing the mask. Maybe, the kind of running theme is your household gets to be together and function together and do things together. And so the one place we don't want you wearing a mask is in your house too with your spouse. And so that's really what we're after tonight. So again, if you're just joining us, submit questions. We'll come to those here in just a minute. I'm getting those on my computer. But let me introduce who we're talking with tonight. So this is Mike and Gaby Keenum. My name is Justin Hamby. I'm on staff here, but the Keenums are what we like to refer to as our very own local marriage experts.
That's super sweet.
And so it's super true. We love you guys and appreciate all you do for marriages and the passion you have. So if you don't mind, take a moment, describe a little bit about yourselves. Why is marriage so important to you guys? Tell us.
You want to start? You want me to start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'll start. We've been married for
27
years. I always check to make sure he's got it right. And we've got 3 amazing kids. Michael's a civil engineer. I am a licensed professional counselor. I work mostly just with marriages. And we have, for years, been doing marriage retreats and conferences and written premarital curriculum. I think a lot of our passion for this started early marriage for us. Oh, yeah. Just not really having any training for anything and running into normal problems and not really knowing what to do with them.
Yeah. And also marriage mentoring.
Oh, yeah. We do a lot of marriage mentoring. Yeah. We have that program here. We just love to watch God work through couples and what can happen in the marriage.
I love it.
So.
I love it. That's awesome. And they are married, so they've also, it's
also
a personal project too. And so truly, we love the Keenums, love you guys, and thank y'all for being willing to do this tonight. Absolutely. And sharing with us, even in this setting. And so thank y'all.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
We've got some really fun stuff that the Keenums will also help develop. And so we'll be coming back to that at the end of our hour tonight. But we are hosting a date challenge. And so you guys helped create a lot of the content for this, most of the content, all the content. And so really fun stuff, and we're excited about it. So, well, before we get into some more content, let's take a moment and pray together and just pray for our night. So let me pray for us, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Cool. Lord God, I thank you for tonight and just an opportunity to talk through marriage. And Lord, I pray that this is truly a candid conversation here tonight, that we might get to wrestle with some questions, that we might... God, truly, that you would speak through us and use this to reach whoever is on the receiving end of this live stream or even recorded footage. God, I really don't know who all this will reach or what exactly the situations are for those individuals or for those couples. But Lord, I pray for those. God, I trust that everyone, again, has been affected by this pandemic in some way, shape, or form, regardless of what shape their marriage was in previously. God, I pray that there's something that you want to do in the lives of each of these individuals as well as couples. And so, Father, I pray that you would just do that tonight. Guide our conversation. Lord, I pray for somebody that might be ready to ask a question. I pray that would be just a sense of boldness to put that question out there and to ask so that we might be able to offer some sort of help here tonight. So God, I pray that this is all honoring. I do thank you for marriage. And Lord, I thank you that you help us in the work of marriage. And so, Father, that's what we're all about here tonight. It's in your Son, Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, so again, we are looking specifically at COVID-19 and kind of what that's done. But before we get there, so you guys do a lot of work to help counsel, encourage, and just kind of walk with people, marriage mentoring, those kind of things. Give us kind of your baseline. Let's establish that. If someone were to ride an elevator with you, one of the slower ones here at the church, and you've got, let's say, a minute, what do you to tell couples? Give them if you want a successful marriage, you need this, do this.
Yeah, so I think we can do it in less than a minute. But
great.
But really, the concise version is your marriage has more to do with your individual relationship with Christ than it has to do with each other. Huh. And so, if you're investing in your relationship with Christ individually, your marriage has a much better chance of succeeding and strengthening and thriving. And that's really what we're about. But having that core there of Christ being that cord of three strands that's not easily broken is so critical to having successful Christ-filled marriages.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So we don't by any means want to bypass that in any conversation tonight, because that is truly foundational, right?
Yeah.
That's everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and I mean,
everything that we're going to talk about, like if this isn't working, there's no way I can do it this way. So,
man, that's great. That's
great.
great.
And as you've said, with COVID, everything is different. We're walking into the unknown, and just had to get that in there. My plug with Frozen too.
I think he just won the bet too.
Right?
So.
Yeah. But really, what does that look like as we continue to walk this path that we haven't walked this before? I mean, none of us have and know what's ahead. And so, if we don't have a strong foundation in Christ, then we just get rocked with the world. So we got to have something that we can come back to and cling to that is not going to change, and that He's always going to be there and always going to be at our side. And so, having that foundation, that rock solid place to go to in the midst of the storm, is so important right now.
Truly, I mean, something firm when nothing else is, right? Yeah. You can't plan on anything right now. So, no, that's really good. That's good. So let's talk a little bit. So, Gaby, let's move into a little bit about COVID-19 specifically. Let's kind of tackle that, and then we can kind of begin our conversations there too. Okay. So, Gaby, you're a licensed professional counselor. How long have you been counseling for?
I've had my license for 20 years.
Awesome.
Private practice for 20 years. I've been counseling for 25.
Man, that's incredible. And thank you for doing that work. That's awesome.
And I'm only 30. That's what's amazing.
Started when you were 5.
That's really impressive. That's really impressive. That's good. So, I don't want to get into any gray territory about breaking confidentiality or anything, but can you tell me a little bit about just generally what are you seeing among individuals, but then how are those sentiments, what people are going through as individuals, how's that playing out into marriages through COVID-19?
Well, so one of the things that has happened since all of this started is that depression and anxiety rates have gone up significantly. And even people that don't normally have tendencies towards that, just because everything's not normal. And so that, think about that playing into a marriage.
Sure.
I think a lot of the uncertainty and the levels of fear and just lots of the different things at the beginning. I mean, I was hearing at the beginning of this, I was hearing a lot of people needing schedules and needing routines and needing to be able to be in control of the things they could be in control of and have predictability and, set up at their house, their office, and their schoolroom, and their, figure out what is their workable plan. And that's starting to shift some. And now what I'm hearing is we are stuck in Groundhog Day. This is the same over and over, and we don't know when it will change. And we don't know how to change our attitude or motivation in the midst of that. I've heard funny things I really love this person, but I didn't know we were going to spend 24/7 right now. You think about that for
so
retirement.
We're be empty nesters, and it's like
Or even I've heard so many people they're like, we love the kids, we're just going to spray them with Lysol and send them to school and hope for the best. They're tired of schooling and parenting and entertaining, and I mean it's been a lot of stress.
But even like
on
the
families.
normalcy of going to Chick-fil-A and you can't go sit down in Chick-fil-A right now.
Right.
Like we're like,
drive through,
Chick-fil-A, and then we're like, oh, we have to eat in the car.
But, pick it up to go, or have it delivered too. That's kind of nice. But
But I mean, just all
truly,
of the oddity of all of that, and then we're two different personalities in a marriage, so that's going to optimism, pessimism, that plays in, and so much of that is working with so many unpredictable things, and a lot of people are really looking forward to school starting, but also there's a humongous question mark with what is that going to be like, and so it's just probably unstable and monotonous are the words I'm hearing now. The things that they can control, they're controlling, and like now they would like to control some other things.
Yes, with a grip and
So, and you mentioned depression and anxiety. I actually heard today that among like high school seniors and especially athletes, that depression is way up because they might not be able to play their senior year in athletics and these sorts of things that just have not been.
A lot of anxiety around that,
And so it's just permeating every facet of life right now, and it's tough.
Well, a lot of people say it's not supposed to be this way. Things that you thought you could count on. I mean, some good friends of ours looked forward to a college graduation for their son. It didn't happen. So it's really tricky to be able to like figure out how do you close that piece of life when there was no finish. So
Which I was looking back through some stuff of
we keep a lot of
some
things
of
to speak
Bobby's devotionals that he's done. And this was back in end of December 2018.
Pre-COVID.
But he's talking about Romans 5:3-4, and not only this, but we also exult in our tribulations, knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance, proven character, and proven character, hope. And what Bobby goes on to say is, among the many paradoxes of our faith is that the greatest life lessons are learned in the worst of experiences. Character isn't nurtured while sitting in the harbor or sailing only calm seas. Character is forged in the storms of life. We must determine whether our troubling days will be obstacles or opportunities. And so, I mean, wisdom from Pastor Bobby that he wrote, almost 2 years ago. And so, but still holds true today, is that these times of trouble, what do we do with this? Do we let it bring us down and become obstacles, or do we figure out opportunities to grow and strengthen our marriages in the midst of working through the really tough stuff that's going on right now?
Well, the challenge, though, with that is that it would be realistic to say that some days it would be perfectly fine for both of us to be like sit on the couch. We don't like this. This is no good.
That's good.
And
so
then
a little bit of complaining and kind of get that out.
We need to be realistic with it. And then it's okay. Like last night, Mike was funny. He said, hey, I think it'd be really good if we finish something. Like, we're going to clean out the garage tomorrow. And you don't know how excited I am about that. Like, it's been on my list for a while.
That's awesome.
But I'm like, I mean, like, what do we get to say this weekend? It is done. We cleaned out the garage. Like, a sense of accomplishment, because it's really hard to find the, like, wow, this is like, what are we learning in this for our marriage? I mean, that's hard in the middle of it.
Right. So, somewhere I'm hearing you say, how do people even start overcoming just the frustrations? What do y'all think?
That's a great question.
There's not just a...
And I think a lot of that is just open communication with each other. Being open to share that this is really hard, this stinks, and this is frustrating, and not having a pity party, but just to be able to communicate with each other and maybe with some friends to say, we're not in this by ourselves. I mean, everybody's feeling this. This is normal at this point in time to feel this way, that our lives have been turned upside down. But really that communication and continuing to do that, not withdrawing into your own individual world, but continuing to have those talks with your spouse and loved ones to have that dialogue and continue that going on, of bringing it out into the open to say, it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to be frustrated. You can cry out to God. He can handle that. It's like, okay, God, why? Why is this going on? This is,
well, but even I remember at the end of April, after I cooked dinner for 30 days straight.
No kidding.
But I wrote that menu down and walked around the family like everybody clapped. Like, I just this, never done this before. But then it was like May 1st. I'm like, over. I don't want to cook anymore.
No.
So, truly, like, to be able to gripe and whine and complain, like this whole idea of lament you're talking about, complaining is actually really healthy in marriage. John Gottman, who's just this marriage guru, can spend, like, he has these things, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, that if they're present in marriage, they're not good for marriage.
Okay.
And so I wonder if we could rattle this off real quick. Like, we didn't.
The pop quiz.
Contempt.
Someone Google this
Yeah,
real quick
Google
as they're
for me
going.
and
Yeah.
check. It's contempt,
Criticism.
defensiveness, criticism, and stonewalling. Hey,
Okay.
high five, got all.
Hey, way to go, y'all.
So the criticism is when you start, like, attacking your spouse or their character or that type
Okay.
of thing. Complaining is totally okay. Complaining is biblical. David does that all the time. Like, it's something where we need to be able to say, like, I really don't like that, or like, this isn't how this works well.
But there needs to be an end to that too, not
Well,
just
yeah, we don't
constant
sit there.
complaining.
But I mean,
Okay, so
but it's part of good communication, and especially in a situation where he and I cannot change this situation. We can't. We can only control the things that we talk about and figure out what works for us. And so it's healthy to be able to say, like, I'm tired of this. I mean, that's like, we've had to cancel a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, I'm like ready to get in the car, and I'm like, I don't even care where we're going. We're going to drive to La Mesa, and we're going to have vacation.
There you go. There you go.
So,
that wasn't on your travel spots
It
prior, right?
was not.
We're going. So gotcha.
But that's important to be. That's part of good communication.
Okay, very good. So sometimes in marriage, and I think God's got just kind of a mysterious way about doing this. Sometimes I see it in mine occasionally is when one of us is struggling, me or my wife, when one of us is struggling, the other tends to be at a higher moment.
Yeah.
And there's sort of a good balance there of there to support each other. Again, it's the cord of 3 strands kind of thing. Where
That is God's grace and mercy right there.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
What happens if you got both sides down?
Like sitting in the pit together.
Yeah. What is?
Those are fun days.
That's when Netflix is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, Netflix.
Sure.
Sometimes you just need to sit and be. And
Okay.
But we've had those seasons in marriage where we're both kind of in that lower spot, and that's something where, like, I mean, some key things, like, we've got to keep the kindness going in marriage. We've got to be nice to each other.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit specifically. So you got your marriage, 2 parts. Let's talk about each part for just a minute. So, Mike, do you mind talking a little bit about husbands? How do you think this time has affected husbands, specifically men in specific? And
and that's a great question. And as you go back to what our biblical roles are, and men are called to be the spiritual leaders in the family. And so, again, going back to what we said is, what are we doing in our spiritual walks? Are we spending time in the Word? Are we praying? Are we praying for our families, for our wives? What is that looking like? Are we taking that role seriously, or do we have a tendency to withdraw and get into our happy place sometimes? A lot of men have that tendency to find that comfort zone, which may be, now we've got live sports on again, so you can sit in front of, you can watch basketball with no fans, or baseball with no fans, and you can get into that little world, or you can get stuck on these things and just be on your phone playing games or whatever for hours on end, and withdrawing into yourself. And that's, for me, that's a very easy place to go, and just to really tune out the rest of the world and get into my little happy box, if you will, which, it's sports or whatever that might be for every individual, woodworking, or, you can find lots of ways to kill lots of hours of hobbies that you neglect your wife and you neglect your kids in the process. Fishing,
You don't do that.
Whatever that is. And so really to pick yourself up and say, I've still got to be engaged. I still have to be part of this relationship, this family. I've got to be the spiritual leader.
Sure.
And sometimes you got to force yourself to do that. Like you said, when you're both in the pit, you can't just stay there forever.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out how to say, we're going to put one step in front of the other and do the next right thing.
Okay, I'll just keep track. How many Frozen references can Mike throw in here?
That's two. Sorry. But it fits. I mean, it really does. And just understanding, like, what is that? Stephen Curtis Chapman says, take another step and another step and another step. And just, when you don't understand what to do, you've got to continue to move forward.
Sure.
And be engaged.
I think early on, one of the things I saw with a lot of the wives was that they needed their husbands to provide that security.
Gotcha.
Like that we're going to be okay, we have a plan here. I don't want to was with all of our kids, we just said, hey, if anybody gets this, here's what our family's going to do.
Gotcha.
Like this, especially we just sent one back to college. One lives in Kentucky, and like this is what we'll do if this happens. Sure. And it was something where that needed to be prompted, and I've heard that I needed that, but then I also heard that from tons of wives.
Gotcha.
So that again, that goes back to that spiritual leadership.
All right. So we were talking a little bit before our interruption about men and what this specifically has done to men, to husbands, and so if you were to kind of round this out, Mike, with what would you recommend husbands do during this time? And I'm not just asking to try to score brownie points or anything. That's not what I'm after. Although I got a few tonight. I think I killed a spider right before we came up here.
Wow.
Now I may lose points because this is the first time my wife's here and there's a spider in the house, so that may be out the window again. But
did you clean it up after you killed it?
I did. It was all good. So,
okay.
And it was a huge spider,
yeah,
massive. So, so tell us a little bit about what advice would you give husbands right now about from this day forward, navigating through pandemic, all that. How would you?
You know, I think the big part is communicate. There's a lot of men that don't like to communicate.
Okay.
The statistics show that women tend to speak 3 times as many words per day as men. And as we're, stuck in our homes together, or the benefit of being in our homes together more than ever before, we've got to get out of that comfort zone and continue to talk and continue to open up. I mean, guys have feelings too. A lot of times we don't like to admit it. If you're a thinker, you have to think about how you feel. And for the feelers out there, that made absolutely no sense. But continuing to engage with your wife and continuing to have the conversations and express your fears, your anxieties, your worries, your hopes, your dreams. I mean, all of those things need to still be a part of it instead of bottling it all up and keeping it to yourself. But
very good.
But also taking that role of the spiritual leader of the household seriously. Mm-hmm. If they haven't been doing that, they need to do that. I mean, we should be doing that anyway, not just during a pandemic.
Right.
We need to fulfill the role that God has placed us in. He's given us that responsibility and that honor in our families, and we need to take it seriously and live up to the call of being the men that God has called us to be, and being the husbands and the fathers that God has called us to be.
Sure.
And I think, not turning inward, but turning upward is really what we've got to continue to do, and be diligent and deliberate about how we do that. Maybe now more so than ever before. That being deliberate is so important, to see our wives, for our wives to see us living that out and knowing that they can trust in what we're doing to lead in these unknown times.
Awesome. Very good. Very good advice. Let's talk. That's good. Well done. Let's talk a little bit, Gaby, if you don't mind, anything specific that you believe women have experienced in the pandemic, and then we'll kind of take that to the next step like we do with men. How does that translate into what advice would you give women right now?
Well,
Make sure you're loud.
yeah, I've got to be loud. So one of the things that I keep seeing is I feel a lot of women I see a lot of women that are overwhelmed.
Okay.
I mean, having to school your children, now feed your family all the time. I mean, and there's people in the space all the time. I think a lot of women, and even those that have, went to work and functioned that way, and now all of a sudden they might be working from home, raising children, cooking everything. I mean, it's like it was easier to balance those roles before this, and now all of those have just come piling on. And
gotcha.
It's also, the majority of women are feelers. That's not true across the board, but the majority of the women are. And so oftentimes talking through and wanting to connect with your spouse and communicate with them helps fix a problem for the women. And that doesn't mean I need Michael to fix the problem. I just need him to listen to me and let me talk through trying to figure that out. That's really tricky for you guys, because fixing the problem is, there's no reason somebody would talk to you unless they wanted you to fix the problem. So I think a lot of those things are playing in. So it's tricky. Like, I need him to be my best friend. I need him to be my husband. I need him to be like my co-laborer in the home. I need him to, when I say, hey, let's do this, I need him to be like, oh, like the garage. Like I've been dreaming of cleaning out the garage. You know, like he jumps on board. Wow, that would be such a fun Saturday. Or
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I'm not sure that's exactly how I worded it, but
said it, but
thanks
I
for
mean,
the credit.
You're welcome.
But you did.
But just to be able to have that teammate,
Yeah.
I mean, that is really probably the biggest challenge that I've heard, is that both spouses are worn out and both of them aren't sure how this looks, and they both have to keep up a good face for the kids, and
Yes.
you know, because you don't want to have your kids freaking out, and yet they also they need to play and have some fun, and I mean, trying to figure out how to do all of that is really challenging.
It is. It's big. It's daunting trying to
Right.
do it all and do it all well.
I think something you said too that's important is that throughout all this to recognize we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And continue to have that mindset of we're in this thing together, and how does that work as we work together through all of these things,
Yes.
instead of me against you or us against them, but it's us together. We're a team and we're going forward.
Yeah.
We don't know what the future looks like, but we know we're in this and we're not going anywhere.
Very good. Very good. So we actually did just have a question roll in, and so I'd like to go ahead and jump in on this while we're kind of in this vein here. The question is, how do you get your husband to open up and talk about feelings?
That's a good question.
So what I would love to do is separate you two and see what your answers would be differently. And I mean, this is a very valid question.
Well, and I think, I'll start and then you kind of jump in. But what I said earlier is I'm a thinker by nature. That's how God wired me. And so, it took us many years to figure out when Gaby would say, "How are you feeling?" And my response was, "I don't know." And she said, "How can you not know how you feel?" And I was like, "That's not how I process the world and how I process life." And so I said, "Let me think about how I'm feeling and give me 30 minutes or something so I can process that. And I need to think through it. It's not something that comes naturally to me. And a lot of men are that way. It's like, we don't wear our feelings on our sleeve. Some men do and have the ability to do that. But a lot of men process and we're analytical and we're thinkers. And so that idea of when she would push me, it's like, no, I want to know how you're feeling. And then I would get angry because I didn't have an answer to that. And it's like, I'm feeling something. I know that something's not normal, but I can't put words to that.
Right.
And so let me think about it and process. And then she had to be able to back up some to let me do that. Because if she continued to be pushing to say, no, you've got to know how you're feeling. I want to know what you're feeling. And that would make us both frustrated. Yeah, and I just can't. And so when we don't know, we would tend to lash out or get angry or just completely withdraw.
Okay,
and so,
very good.
From a guy's perspective, that's one for me that was helpful. Is just I need to think about how I feel and process that. Just again, that helped me a lot, and we were able to do that more. Do you want to?
Well, I think one of the reasons a wife would ask that question is because I'm going to feel more connected, and I'm going to feel more a part of him once I understand what's going on in his mind and in his heart.
Gotcha.
And so that's where that question's probably coming from. If she wants to know how are you feeling or what's going on with you, or she really wants to connect. That's like number one thing that's happening. And then like she's curious, like she values your opinion. It's almost like that's not a good analogy. I'm trying to think of one that would fly through my head, but like she wants to come and stick to him, and like she can do that by learning what's going on internally and like what he's processing and what even like I say, how was your day? And he's like, good. I'm like, did you do anything? Like, what does that mean? What was the process of your day? Because I'm trying to figure out how to bond to him. And so men, I mean, if you guys said, how was your day? He's going to go good. You're going to go, and then you're done.
Good. Yeah.
So like you guys don't bond like that. Emerson Eggridge talks about how wives need face-to-face time, and that would be this connection through verbal time. And men need shoulder-to-shoulder time, which is connection by doing things together. So, like, if we go run to the golf course or something and Mike plays and I just sit in the cart and drive around with him, this is a lot. It fills his cup. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't be able to talk during that because that would invalidate the shoulder-to-shoulder. But, like...
You can't have both. Not at the same time, right? Yeah.
But then, like, you know, if we go sit somewhere and have a cup of tea or something together, like, I want, like, close, face to face, tell me what's going on, like, what's your deepest thought, all this stuff. But she's like, I don't know.
Yeah, you need to go play another round.
That's right.
It can tell you, right?
Yes.
No, it's good.
So that's
good.
where that's coming from. And that's, I mean, God designed us like that. So we have to respect that design and then figure out how do we work within that.
Gotcha. And that, I mean, truly, that's got to be an exercise, right? Something that you practice and get better at.
Absolutely.
And even kind of understand where each other's coming from. So that's really good. That's helpful.
Well, there's no right way.
And there's
I
not
mean, those are both things God designed, so one's not better than the other.
Gotcha. But how to work
together
with it. Right. So that's not a frozen line.
I don't think so.
Man. All right. I'm going for something. I need to brush up. Oh, man. All right.
Just let it go.
All right. 3 to the cans. I'll work on it. Maybe I'll get
back
better.
into Frozen
Sorry.
1. See,
I know. Yeah, that's going back now. I do know Frozen. Our kids are singing Frozen 1 right now, like crazy. Let's take another question real quick. We talked on this back in part 1 before our live stream cut out, but so we referenced this earlier on. But what if 24/7 time with your spouse has actually caused you to be annoyed by your spouse?
Oh, I would totally expect that it would.
Yeah, and you
That is
trust
so
that that's
normal.
happening.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so
Well, that
normal.
makes sense. So what do you do about this, or how do you even talk to your spouse about that? How do you say "I love you" in small doses, or you know, like,
Well, I think
how do you do that?
one of the things we've got to pay attention to is our self-talk.
Okay.
So if you
Explain
think
that a little
about,
bit.
like, let's say I'm sitting next to him and he like chews funny, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's so loud when he chews or something, and then I keep doing that and keep processing it, and like for 10 years, I think he's done it. Like, so I have this whole thing going over here. All by myself. I work that up, and I feed that, I nurture that, I foster that. That's gonna make my irritation go up so much quicker than if that was something we're like, hey, can you just your mouth shut because that bugs me.
Yeah.
And we just deal with it, right?
But I think the other
Not that Mike doesn't chew with his mouth open, you know.
I also think too is that you've got to encourage each other to have some alone time, whether it's you go in the backyard and you just sit and read, or you just walk around the block by yourself and you have some designated time where you do have some separation from each other, because that's healthy to have some of that individual time and just to process and not to have every waking minute together.
That's called newlywed.
Yes, right. But even then, I mean, we need to be able to recharge our batteries, and sometimes it's by ourselves, sometimes it's with a group. And you know, if you're one of those people that needs a bunch of people to recharge, and right now you can't do that,
You're starving.
you're going stir crazy. Yeah, but again, that 24/7 is absolutely, that would be grating on everybody, because you have no outlet for anything else.
Sure.
And so, you know, it started out positive where couples, I think, were like, we get a lot of time together. We get to spend a lot of time reconnecting. Really, that's awesome. About 2 weeks in, I was like, yeah, you go away now.
This is, to the other side of the room.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now we're 5 months into this thing, and when's it going to end? And
right.
We just need so much mercy with each other. I mean, that we need that always in our marriage.
Sure.
And that compassion, that grace. Like if I'm not feeling myself, like it's so much easier to be offended. Like so we need to not take offense at certain things.
Okay.
And we need to be able to tell them if we are, because that's just, I mean, there's a thing called confirmation bias, and that's where I would think something. Yeah, I'd think something in my head, and then I'd look for things that he did to prove that.
And it lines up.
And I would ignore all of the things that are opposite than that, and that kind of feeds irritation a lot.
Gotcha. So to be able to talk about some of these things, how would you advise a couple? I mean, simply on how do you even approach a conversation like that? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that that's one of those things that couples are afraid to say, you're really getting on my nerves. You know, just like, can I say that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
And I think people are maybe afraid, and some are like, no, I'm telling them all the time. That,
they're going to hear it.
Yeah, you are really annoying me. Go away. Sure.
Well, I mean, when we teach communication skills to couples, we say you need to speak clearly. You need to say what you mean. You need to be kind when you say it. Speak the truth in love.
Keep that.
You need to, it can't be an attack, because then they'll get defensive and nothing will be done. I mean, it just needs to be, and you need to prepare before you say it. Like, if I need to approach them about something, it would be really wise for me to go sit down with God and make sure, what are my motives? Why am I doing this? Like, am I just having a bad day, so I'm just going to go lash out? Like, I need to figure out what's going on with me.
That's excellent advice. I like that. So maybe kind of take that to yourself, and then before bringing that up. So very good. Okay. Another question. Dating or going on dates has flipped on its head, right? Sure. I mean, that doesn't exist. If I were to say date, you'd probably imagine it's always food for us.
Right.
We love dinner, and we miss chips and salsa at the Mexican. I mean, keep it coming. Like that's what we miss is the Mexican food restaurant.
And the bag from the store with the jar is not the same, right?
No, and there's never enough chips. I need 3 more baskets, but they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. So anyway, that's a different live stream. But so in light of the changes in dating, whatever you used to do for dates, as that's changed, how do you recommend couples keep connecting and keep spending time like that together?
Well, I mean, I'll put a little out there, but also this leads to like our dating challenge. Like, Mike and I wrote a dating challenge where they're going to have, if they sign up for it, and then if they get fun prizes if they do it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we picked certain themes, and so there's several date ideas under each theme. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think you and I texted, and I was like, they could go on dates for 24 weeks or something.
Yeah.
They chose to do
these two, there were ideas flying everywhere. So we may have part 2 of the dating challenge too later. But it's great. It's good
all
stuff.
of the ones that we did that are on the dating challenge are specifically for this time.
I love it.
So that couples could figure out how within all these weird constraints that we have, they could actually come up with ideas. And I think one of our challenges with dating right now, because when we were making all those fun things, I was thinking, when's the last time we went on a date? And I really couldn't come up with when that was. But I think one of our biggest challenges with that is everything we came up with takes energy. And our energy level to invest in that part of our marriage has been, that's like so low right now.
I get that. Yeah.
Our reserves are pretty well tapped out.
Right.
Just the emotional energy with all the stuff that's going on. But I think going back to your point too of the dating is that you need to be creative. You can't just dinner and a movie is not an option right now.
No.
Although we saw that Tinseltown is going to reopen in the middle of August. So really quick. Don't know what they're going to show, but anyway.
They're probably going to show all Star Wars movies.
That's
you
right.
Go in and you stay for like a day.
And so now that going to the movie theater will be a novelty, like, when your kid's like, oh, we can go to the movie.
Yeah.
But what does a creative date look like? To go and spend time in the dating relationship of purposeful and talking and getting to know each other, which is how we grew up. Well, that's what dating was to begin with.
Most certainly, yeah.
You go on a date to learn about this person and ask questions and whatever that entails, that you become more deliberate, more purposeful in trying to figure out and study who this person is. Do you really like them? Does this have future in the relationship if they're not married? But even as you're married, to continue to date that person even after you're married.
Sure.
And that
so the dates that we came up with are like the creative, the fun, the outside of the box, like things that, I mean,
hopefully we've spent the energy to come up with that.
So they can just put it in a date.
Y'all got them rolling, and maybe this translates into, that you kind of gain some momentum of, there's 5 weeks of dates that we're going to do. We'll cover that here in just a moment more on the date challenge. But words like creativity and having the energy, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It has truly changed everything.
If everybody thinks back to when they started dating, I mean, like, Mike wrote me poems, and like we would go do things that we wouldn't do now because we had more time.
Right.
We had no money, so we had to be creative.
You were,
I mean, so like we really drew from a lot of those experiences and tried to put those out as options for the couples.
Sure. I love it. That's really good. And I love the conversation helps too to get some conversation going. And some of them were really fun. My wife and I started dating long distance, and so all we did was phone call. And now it's kind of weird. Now we're stuck in the house together. We're supposed to be in miles apart talking, and so
call each other.
maybe we, I don't know. That's a good one.
There's
That's
one
good.
thing that I forgot to put on the date thing. There's a real cute little book called Love Talk Starters by Les and Leslie Parrott.
Okay.
And it's just a book full of questions to ask each other.
How cool.
Like
just to get you
random
started.
questions.
Yeah.
Like if you're an astronaut and you're going to a planet, where are you going and what are you going to do there?
I love
I mean, just-
the random questions.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's great. We had another question roll in. They get it all on my screen here. All right. How do you find a new balance when one partner has been an essential worker and has been at work and the other has been at home the whole time? And then there's part two. How does one fight loneliness and the other dealing with the stress of a new job during the pandemic? That's a big question. It's good. It's good. And thank y'all for asking that.
So ask the first part again.
Yeah, let's go back to the first. So how do
One's
you
an essential
find
worker.
yeah. So new balance, a new kind of way of life, it sounds like. One is an essential worker and the other is now working from home. I mean, total flip of
Yeah.
Think about how hard that is because so one person, everything stays the same, and the other one, everything changes. And
yes.
so depending, especially on their roles in the household, that's going to add some challenge. I mean, if the wife is the one that now is at home and wasn't used to that, that adds a whole level of pressure and stress on homemaking and all those kind of things, plus still working. If it flips and it was the husband that was the one that now is at home, I mean, that's not a normal guy role at all.
Yeah,
So,
that feels different for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, if in that situation, and if the essential worker is a healthcare worker that's in the hospital, in the front lines, those nurses and doctors that
Right.
are there and dealing with the
High
stress
stress.
of,
Yes.
of patients coming in and how do they decompress if they're exhausted. And I mean, that's one of those that talking, I think, is the big thing of what you got to be honest with each other of what we need and to say, I want to connect, but I really need to sleep. Or I've been at home all day, I really need to talk. Well, somehow there's got to be a balance that neither one of you is any good if you're exhausted and just
Yes.
at wit's end.
So that would
So
kind of
carving
look
out that
like
time.
redefining some boundaries in marriage and
Okay.
having some discussions that they hadn't ever had before. We teach levels of communication, and it is phenomenal. The lower level of communication that's pretty deep is in needs and desires. And so they would need to have a communication that's down in that needs and desires on, like, truly what's different for me and then what support do I need from you? And what does that actually look like and
Gotcha.
vice versa? And then how do we shift other things maybe in our life or in our marriage in order to accommodate that? Because another thing that they're probably dealing with is neither one of them signed up for that. And so
Yes.
there's,
and
and that's,
finding themselves in that new,
Yeah.
yeah.
so I mean, that's one of the things that I've seen a lot with couples is that something was picked for them.
Mm.
And if they would have chosen it, they could have coped better. But
Most
when
certainly.
it was chosen for them, then now all of a sudden they have a reaction to that. And so probably they just need to redefine some of those boundaries and truly get into what do I need.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really good.
But that's like a deep conversation.
That's big. And so,
Did we address the part two of that?
part two, we talked, we kind of got there, where the one who is at home is struggling with the loneliness, and then the one starting the new job or finding themselves as an essential worker is dealing with that high stress of the pandemic. And so I think we kind of spoke to those two things. The simple answer would be for all this just to end and we get back to normal, right?
And I think even
the
along those
coping.
two, and picking up the phone and calling a same-sex friend, like if it's the girl that's experiencing loneliness, she calls the girlfriend, or a guy connects with some of his guy friends and just having some of that, not doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of loneliness right now.
Yes.
Because I think this is a great plug. This will not be your friend, and it will not. I
Yeah.
mean, it just adds to depression and anxiety
It'll
right now.
distract, but leads to
So,
side
Turn off
effects.
the news.
like Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had so many people where I've said, please stop watching the news. Don't get any more notifications. Just stop. Like, I don't need you to know how many cases we have today at all.
Yeah.
Because, like, we still have them and just,
That's all you need to know
Yeah.
is that much.
So, I mean, even being able to reach out, I have a very sweet mentor that I gotten the privilege of working with him many, many years. And so he'll shoot me an email and he'll say, hey, Davey, like, when do you want to set up a time to talk? He and I got to teach together at a university. He's just very important mentor in my life. And so
he's like a father figure.
He is. He's like, he could be my dad. Anyway, but like, he and I will set up and we'll just call each other and catch up for 15, 20 minutes. And that, so even stuff like that is really good to ward loneliness off. You know, to be able, we did early on, we pulled my family and did a Zoom game night with the California, the New Mexico, and the Texas people.
Oh, you were all over the place, yeah.
And that was fun. We just made sure everybody had the pieces, and you know, so like being very purposeful about how do you actually, because you have to do something about the loneliness.
Yeah.
But I think that's, you know, not just a text, but a phone call or FaceTime to see somebody face to face is bridging that gap a little more. That, you know, in the past, maybe a text to check on somebody was okay.
The quick, easy.
But now you actually need to have that connection.
Well, we did dessert on Zoom with our marriage mentors. Like when
that's fun. Yeah,
like, what are we all eating? This is what we have.
That's excellent. I like that. And maybe, hopefully, without some of the same stay-at-home orders, and maybe we're getting to the point where, the outdoor meeting somebody's front yard.
Oh yeah,
be able
park.
to,
the parks are actually being used in town. Have you
so
noticed?
it's crazy. We're right on the corner next to a park.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while. We didn't have baseline before we moved here last summer, but just unreal. Seeing people out and seeing families, and so that's really cool. Not a question. We'll probably take a few more questions. We'll talk about our date challenge. We just had a comment about that as well, but we did have somebody messaged in and said, I guess Jenny. She said, can you just tell Gaby hi? Jenny says hi and that she loves you. And Beg said, no, really, please tell her.
I know who that is. Hi, Jenny.
So we got Jenny in, says hi. And so let's do one more question, and then we're going to talk about our date night challenge. And we had the technical interruptions, but I still want to make sure that if you committed it to us an hour, we'll try to keep you about that. We'll run through the date challenge and what that looks like, as well as another marriage event coming up. But let's look at one question here, and then we'll look at those things.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, some of these we've actually already kind of answered, which is cool. We have actually had a few questions roll in about big issues. I'm talking addiction, infidelity, these kind of things. I'm not sure that's something we want to just go into in full depth right here, right now, but what would you say to a couple that's dealing with one of those big issues, specifically infidelity, addiction, those kind of things?
Okay, so those, I think one of the challenging things that COVID's done is it's shined a light on, all of a sudden it's like, now we've got to deal with this. And those are issues where you really got to find a good Christian counselor and get involved with them. Those take a lot of work and they're a lot of effort. But we serve a God who makes all things new and who can heal anything. And so that's why I like what I do.
I love it.
I get to watch that. Sorry.
You get to watch him work through people
I
and
get to
restore.
watch him restore all of those and heal them. But they need help. They can't do that by themselves. And definitely there's no way we can give a game plan for that right now. So, I mean, there's so many really good Christian counselors here in town. They need to find one. They need to get some referrals. They need to find one that they connect with. That's a hard, long path, but it's so worth it. And it's amazing what can happen. And they just need someone to help them walk through it.
Ideal, some of that would be couples therapy, but maybe even individual therapy if one of them's not willing to.
Yeah, oftentimes I have people come and their spouse is not acknowledging, willing, ready, interested.
Okay.
And so what we start doing is we start working with a couple, or with the part of the couple that wants to work and wants to grow. I mean, because regardless, there's always forgiveness issues in them. There's always just deep wounds that are there. There's always, those are such painful things and they're so heavy. And so regardless of whether or not your spouse is willing to do some of the work, but I've watched God do time and time again as I've watched one half of the couple come in, start doing the work,
start making changes, start extending grace and forgiveness, and it's amazing how, it's just like God's love changes people's hearts. And so, at times then the other spouse starts to change and comes alongside, and then at times, healing or reconciliation may not be possible.
Gotcha. So that's the recommendation, and thank you for sending in those questions that are just tough. And I mean, we see it these things break our hearts too, and so it is something we can't recommend enough. Seek that help and get real help through that.
Definitely.
And so thank you again for sending in that question. And
so you're gonna segue from that into the date night challenge? Is that
so we are.
Wait, real quick.
Didn't
you say we had some singles that were watching too, though?
We did. So actually, sorry. We had an early question that came in too. Let's go to this one, and then we'll talk through the date challenge. What is your best advice for a single person trying to find a partner?
Well,
go and make it real fun and say in COVID-19.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be really hard, wouldn't it?
You can't even see people.
I think one of the, this is actually one of the areas we also love to spend time in. And really, it's like, how are you growing in Christ? This goes back to what we teach with marriage.
Yes.
You pour into and develop your relationship with Christ and let him, for me, that would mean I would purposefully be focused on growing in Christ in order to become the wife that he would have me to be someday.
And to become whole yourself and to fix whatever's going on here and be in that position for when that opportunity comes.
I love it.
That you've worked on you.
Well, and trust.
So you're ready.
Just trust God. It takes so much belief and trust. He has a plan. When we finagle and manipulate that, there's so many biblical examples of bad manipulation.
Yes. No, over and over.
Yeah.
Yes. And just
don't do that.
No.
if we're focused on our relationship with him and it's growing, and we find contentment and joy in that, then whenever he decides now's the time.
That person, whoever, I love it. I used to tell students when I was working in student ministry, I said, instead of looking for Mr. or Mrs. or Miss Right, because Mrs. Right is already married.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But instead of try to become Mr.
Right.
Right or Miss Right and be prepared for that. So that's time well spent. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, y'all, that's good. Let's talk through. I'm really excited about this. So we had this idea to create a date challenge, and what this is yes, we are calling you out. We are challenging you to accept this date challenge. And so the Kingdoms did an excellent job at creating 5 weeks of date content. Okay. So here's what this happened. Here's what this is. You're going to see a link from me posted right now in the comments section. There it is. All right. So you're going to click on that link and sign up for this challenge. And the reason you're signing up is so that you can start receiving emails from us. So for the next 5 weeks, starting on Monday, this coming Monday, the 11th. Is that the 11th?
No, Monday's the... No, is it?
10th. Monday the 10th. All right. So coming Monday, August 10th, you'll receive a date challenge outline. And so what this will be, week after week, will be a date content complete with a theme for the night. And that includes 3 options. And they're kind of a different...
2 different dates you could do. You don't have to do all 3.
Yes. So different styles.
Overachievers could do all 3 if they wanted to.
You can, but it still only counts for 1 date. Okay. So now here's the challenge that you're gonna go on. Couples are going to do 4 dates over the course of 5 weeks, and if you do, that's 1 date a week. You can't have 1 straight week of 5 dates and call it good. That doesn't count. So doing these dates, submitting us those dates, we'll put your names in the drawing for some really awesome prizes. And we're doing things like an overnight stay at the Overton Hotel here in town. We're doing restaurant gift cards as well as some really fun activities around town for you to do. And I'll probably communicate with you, whoever our winners are, to figure out where you're most comfortable in terms of activities or going out to eat or having something delivered to your house in the middle of the pandemic. So be aware, we'll get you a prize that will work for you and what you're most comfortable with.
But they have to submit proof of date.
There has to be proof of date. So this is where it is a challenge. We want you to date because we believe it's good for your marriage.
Yes.
But we also are going to help hold you accountable to this. And so if you haven't submitted a date to us, you will get followed up with. We'll ask a question on Friday to say, hey, we've seen you haven't submitted a date yet. Be sure you get one in. You'll have to submit that date from the week prior on the next Monday. So we get a first email go out on August 10th. That first date is due on August the 17th. Now here's what's cool about it. We have 5 weeks. This ends September the 14th, is a Monday. Our 5 weeks is up then, but you've got to have 4 dates. So here's the deal.
At least 4. They could do all 4.
Yes, but to be eligible to be in the prize drawing, you've got to submit 4 dates to us. Now, if you're watching this live stream, let's say on Tuesday, August the 11th, guess what? You've still got a chance to sign in. You're going to use the same link in the comment section below. And by the way, First Lubbock, we're going to be sending this out as an email. So if you want to even invite your friends, all you got to do is forward that email. Okay? So share that, get as many people on board. Share with people that are outside our church too. But
even if they're out of town.
Yes,
right?
this
That would
is
be a lot of fun.
terrific content. I love it, and I'm really excited about it. But all we'll do is we'll add their name to that mailing list, and they'll start receiving the date challenges. So here's what's really great, though, is you got to have those 4 dates. So again, even if we're halfway through the week, if someone wants to jump in on week 2, you've got to get 4 dates, but you can still be eligible to win those prizes. Right. So really cool. The last week of our date challenge is actually going to overlap with another marriage event we've got going. This is a simulcast hosted that Right Now Media puts on. If you don't have a Right Now Media subscription, you need to get one because it's terrific content. I can help set you up with that through First Lubbock. But they put on an annual simulcast. And so what that is 3 keynote speakers and then an entertainer, Michael Smith Jr.
Yep.
Is he Jr.? Yeah. Hilarious, great. It'll be a really great night of content. That is September 12th. If you want to use that night as one of your dates, you can count that as a date night as well. So really, we're looking at a minimum of, you got to get at least 3 dates on your own, but we're trying to make this as easy and accessible to you. So 5 weeks, you can skip a week and even still participate in another conference and get credit towards that date challenge. So we will be asking for a picture as well as a brief write-up of your dates. So just be sure to submit those, and again, you'll see that instructions in the email.
Couple sentences.
Yep. No, we don't need the full play-by-play, but let us know. Let us know. Did you take a drive around town and listen to the favorite CD you used to have, or whatever it was? And by the way, these date ideas are not just staring into each other's eyes for 2 hours, but really, really great, really fun, really creative, and again, trying to make this easy for the people, right? You guys did a terrific work.
Did the creativity. Now they just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Pick one, and truly, the most important thing to this is intentional time together.
Yes.
Right? As our normal dates have been stripped away, that's what we're after, is helping you connect. And so we're going to help you with that. We are going to incentivize it. I'm not ashamed of that at all. But I'm going to.
Awesome. I love that.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So we encourage you to join in. And again, if you're late watching this video later after it was recorded live, you still got a chance to sign up and get involved, and be sure to share this with your friends and invite it.
But even if they watch late and aren't eligible for
if
the
you watch
prizes,
this a year from
still
now,
let us
take
know.
forward,
Yes,
well,
yes.
because they'll know this is like the benefits of time with your spouse and your marriage.
Sure.
All the research shows is very good for you.
Helping that, yes, it's excellent. All right, it's looking like we have one more question. Again, y'all take a moment, if you haven't already, sign up for that date challenge or do that as soon as we're over. I don't want to go too long in our time, but we do have another question. So I'd love to ask you guys this. What marriage books do you recommend? If we have already read the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work.
I think
Is
one
that a good book? I haven't read that.
of
I actually don't know that I have either, so maybe that's one we got.
Yeah,
one
we
of
could
those-
rattle off a whole
Yeah, I
bunch.
would say one of
Okay.
if you're only going to read one marriage book,
Yeah.
the one that we would recommend is Love and Respect by Emerson Eggerichs. I mean, that is by far, it's practical, it's real, it's spiritually based. I mean, it's based on Ephesians 5:33.
Excellent.
Husbands, love your wives, wives, respect your husbands. I mean, that's the crux of the whole thing. But
Love and
what do we
respect.
specifically do for husbands to love their wives, wives to respect their husbands? And so there's a lot of great ones out there, but that would be the one. If we had to pick one book to read for marriage,
How cool.
that's the one.
Very good. Love and respect. Okay.
Yeah, and
golly, we've got like a whole, we read all of these and then we
Yeah.
dump them into stuff we teach. Les and Leslie Parrott, who
Uh-huh.
are the speakers at the Right Now media events,
Yes.
like they're one of our keynote speakers. They've written Love Talk, Trading
Time-Starved
Places,
Marriage.
Time-Starved Marriage, like tons of books.
Okay.
Theirs are easy to read and practical.
Love it.
They're usually topically oriented. So, you know, if you want to talk about communication, the language of
Making-
sex, that's a
Making
great
Happy.
book. Yeah, Making Happy is by Les and Leslie Parrott. The Language of Sex is by Gary Smalley and Ted Cunningham. That's about communication,
Very
actually.
good.
It's not about sex.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Weird, I
He
know.
picked it up because it said that. And I'm
Well,
like, just keep
sure. Yeah, the bait and switch, man.
Exactly.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
What's another? Oh, we didn't talk at all about sex on here because it's awkward because you can't see it all. But Doug Rosen on Celebration of Sex for Christian Marriage, like he's
Okay.
phenomenal. Joyce
Very
and
good.
Clifford Penner have wonderful books about that.
Okay.
They said one.
Oh, sorry.
No, this is good
Like
though.
brain dump, right?
Yeah, I mean, truly, but y'all are well read, and so I appreciate that. So, even helpful to know things like anything out of the parrots is good stuff. You can
Yeah,
trust
awesome.
them.
Yeah.
Any title you pick up by them is gonna be
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely.
And same is true of, is it Egrich?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
making sure I
language, yeah.
pronounce that correctly, but plenty of good people. And some of these studies even exist like on Right Now Media as
Sure.
well, that you can even take into a video-based study as well.
Love and
Absolutely.
respects
And
on
so-
right now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, y'all can let me know if you're interested in a Right Now Media account. You can email me at justin@firstlubbock.org. I'd be happy to set you up with one, but it can get you going on some great curriculum, and especially if you've already watched everything on Netflix and already watched Frozen 2 6 times. Is that right?
Something
I
like
don't know.
that,
That's
yeah.
what
I
he
don't know.
said.
So great content there. I think we have one more question that just came in. Okay, here we go. What if you find yourselves fighting constantly? And specifically, maybe you're really fighting as a couple for the first time, or you just see that your fighting has escalated to be more frequent, almost nonstop, by the way the question's worded.
Non-stop is not good.
Okay, so, well, one thing to establish is fighting is not necessarily bad in marriage.
Okay.
Like fighting actually brings conflict, or having conflict and fighting brings passion into the marriage. It makes you both have to grow and change, and that's why we
Yes.
fight.
It's the
Okay.
as iron sharpens iron.
Right. So that's not necessarily bad.
Okay.
Fighting well is what couples have to learn how to do.
Okay.
So if they're fighting in an unproductive way, if it's mean,
Name calling.
name calling, like the 4 horsemen we mentioned a long
Okay.
time
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Like they really need help on figuring out how to fight effectively.
Very cool.
Les and Leslie have a book called The Good Fight,
Okay.
which talks about that. John Gottman has a book called Why Marriages Succeed or Fail, and it has a lot to do with how couples fight. And so, getting some training in that, reading a good book, talking to a counselor,
Very good.
in order to be able to learn how to do that better.
Okay.
Because it's not something they should be concerned about. They need to do it well.
Okay. Gotcha. So,
And I think, as part of that too, it's not trying to create winners and losers. Because if I have to win, then you have to lose.
Yes.
But understanding we're on the same team to stay calm. A lot of times, men especially, but women do it too. But if we get our
Heart rate.
adrenaline and heart rate up, we can't calm down in the
you
moment.
lose it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you need to physically remove yourself from the situation and say, I need to calm down.
For a
Okay.
minimum of 30 minutes, the research shows.
And process
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because men, if you get past that point of no return, you can't calm yourself down in that moment. But arguing well and hearing each other and trying to understand and hearing what's behind it, you don't always have to agree. And so, but even having an argument, I'll say not a fight, but an argument, doing it when you're touching, you're putting your legs across each other's lap or whatever that is, that's much easier to have conflict without escalating it.
Okay.
It's very hard to be escalating when you've got your arm around each other, when you're just holding
Gotcha.
each other's hand or something. And so having some of that more intimate physical contact and just
Gotcha.
being and having that conversation and trying to be calm
Sure.
and really hearing where each other's coming from. And that's a big part of that. Are you heard, or is your opinion respected? That's a healthy way to have it instead of,
know that. Yeah.
you're stupid for thinking that, I can't believe you would ever do that. That's not productive. But really processing through and as we're in closer proximity for much longer periods of time, some of that's going to bubble up that
Most certainly.
may not have been there before.
Sure.
Well, couples need to remember how brave and courageous it is to go ask for help. It's so much easier to fix something earlier in marriage than to fix it 30 years as a pattern.
You're talking about with counseling.
Yeah, with counseling. So like,
Yeah.
even if it's like, hey, we just need a couple
Start there.
sessions to learn how to fight. I mean, how wise is that? I mean, that can change the trajectory of the relationship.
That is so true. And yeah, starting sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Awesome. Well, y'all, we don't have any other questions rolling in, and we've gone a little over an hour now. So with that said, I'd kind of kick it to y'all one more time. Do y'all have any closing remarks or anything you'd like to? We kind of started with your, basic marriage advice kind of thing. Is there any encouragement or any final word you would offer to couples watching with us tonight or in the future?
I think the big thing, like we started with, was your marriage relationship has more to do with your individual relationship with Christ. That has to be the center. That has to be the core. And I think the other piece is we have a God that is in control. He has a plan. He knows what's going to happen, even though that we don't. And then we can trust in Him and rely on Him through this to get us through this process. And also to realize that we're on the same team. Mm-hmm. And so come what may, we're in this thing together. And we're going to ride this thing out, regardless of how long it lasts or what it looks like, that we know and we reassure each other that we're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And that
very good.
Coming out the other side, that we're looking forward to that day, that, emotionally and everything else that's going on, we're going to be in a better place than where we were when it started.
Very good.
Marriage is hard work in general.
Yes.
And now we add this on top, and it's even harder, but it's one of the most rewarding experiences. I mean, when God tried to get us to understand the depth of intimacy and relationship with Him, this is what He created.
Yeah.
And so we just got to remember, like, this is a lot of work, but it's so much. It is.
It's good, and it can be fun, right? It can be fun.
But it's
sure.
So meaningful, and it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, man, you wouldn't miss it for the world, right?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, Gaby, thank you guys so much. If y'all don't mind, even in the comments section, show some digital appreciation and smile and wave, and if you're wearing a mask, smile too. But thank you guys. Thank y'all for all the effort and energy y'all invested in being here tonight, but in also creating the date challenges and helping create all that content. So
absolutely,
really appreciate y'all.
Thank you for having us, but thank you more
my pleasure.
for choosing to invest in all of our church marriages.
My pleasure. Well, with that said, we're going to end our stream tonight. Your first thing you need to do is sign up for that date challenge. Okay, get signed up. Help share that. Unfortunately, we have a 2-part live stream now. Those will be available on our Facebook page. So share part 1 with somebody, and I'm hoping we can set it to where part 2 may pop up immediately after. That'd be really cool. But we'll also be posting this live or on YouTube later. I'll edit it together, put it in one part, and then that'll make it hopefully that much easier to share too. So get on board with the date challenge. Invite your friends, tell people about it. Thank you guys. Thank y'all for taking the time to invest in your marriages as well, just by participating in this tonight. And thank y'all for the questions. Thank y'all, and hope you stay well, stay healthy, stay strong, and we'll see y'all later.
Bye.